Good evening, Great Debate League. Happy New well, I consider New Year in the spring, so happy coming up New Year. We're pleased to be back for the 2021 season. We're the GDL Commissioners, minus one. Professor AJ is not with us right now. My name's Ebony Johnson, along with Dr. Bruce Strobel and Dr. Mutor Flood. And we wanted to come in and have a little fun with y'all tonight. We've had two Black films released recently that we want to share some commentary on. We've been talking in the background about it. There's been a lot of talk on social media. And so we're going to come in and give some official commentary and then also give you some insight into season 2 for the Great Debate League. But let's start off with Judas and the Black Messiah. Bruce, you saw it first and was going in and sending us all these messages and stuff. So I'm going to let you get it out there first.
You know, I've been just how I was raised. I was introduced to the Panthers at a young age. I read a lot and studied the Panthers a lot. I met Black Panthers throughout different spaces of time in my life. And I always admired what they attempted to do. It wasn't until I got older and I was in school and I started to research them and research people who lived in that time, people who were adjacent to Panthers, that I started to be able to critique them objectively. Because before I was just a straight fan. So I found the movie interesting in that context where you get to see, you know, the Black Panther Party and their struggle, like what they were attempting to do, what they were attempting to accomplish. And then you get to see the means that the state used to kind of pull them apart. And it's really, you know, like I said, I went through the full spectrum of emotions. I cheered during Fred's speeches. I was happy to see them with some of their victories, but then, you know, ultimately it was heartbreak at the end. And I thought that, you know, that's what made the movie an excellent film.
Yeah. What about you, Mew?
I mean, I thought the movie, the acting was well done. These are two very, very accomplished actors, and everybody else who played in the background, they were very good actors as well. I thought the directing was excellent. I don't have as much knowledge as Bruce does on Fred Hampton affair. I know like the broad details of what occurred, but kind of the nitty gritty details, you know, I do not. But the movie I thought was really was well done. Well done.
Yeah. I have some of my, you guys, you know, shared some of the different aspects that I've thought of as well. But one of the things for me is I know that it was more so about the Judas, Judas character. However, I was having a conversation with one of my sisters and she said, you know, the thing for her about whether or not she really wanted to full blown watch that movie, that what was holding her back was she doesn't like the narrative of always showing us in a position of being killed by white people ultimately. And that there, you know, far too often there are films that are praised of, well, yeah, look at this great Black leader, but then ultimately the government and white supremacy and white folks are going to take them down. And so there was the challenge for her of, I just don't want to see that again. You know, like I don't want to see this happen, even though Bruce, I know we've had some behind the scenes talk about some of the factual natures of the film, and Mutor, you've talked about using movies as cultural mythology and, you know, and as tools, and do they activate or deactivate African liberation? What are I want y'all to share some of that back and forth a bit with using movies as tools, because this wasn't, I mean, there was factual accuracy, but there was also some things that were not accurate, you know, necessarily. So they did use creative license the way that they chose to use it in this film. So talk about, Mutor, a little bit more, you and Bruce, if you will, your insights on using this movie as a way to activate African liberation or deactivate it.
A lot of people. Go ahead. You haven't spoke yet. No, you haven't spoke yet, brother. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying you started off. Bruce.
Okay. A lot of people who I've talked to, particularly people who are close to activist movements, activist adjacent, they said that the movie challenged them because on one thing they found it like, damn, I need to get back out there. I done got older and got a job, and it's like I can't divorce myself from this struggle. So I think the movie was jolting in that way. A lot of times I talk about how one time Dr. Eric Dyson, me and him were talking when he came to FAMU, and he was explaining this concept of how we live in a united state of amnesia, and that America, with all its luxuries that it could provide you, sometimes it lulls you into a space where you forget, and then you start to see events as separate acts. And then a piece of art like this will jolt you and put you right back into that space where you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about this, but now everybody is pulled back in that space. Like, oh yeah, we were involved in a struggle and they shut it down. Like, so that is that part of it. I think that these types of films can have that effect to kind of shake you up. But I don't expect a film in the United States of America that's released and screened. We know it's a process to actually stir up a full rebellion. At most, we'll be allowed to get pieces across that jolt people and force them to think about their circumstances.
So, I mean, I said earlier, I thought the film was well done, but my overall critique of the film is that, one, they focused on not that they focused on Judas, O'Neill, but how they focused on O'Neill. So they made him as a character somebody that you could somewhat empathize with. A young kid at a young age, did something wrong like all of us do at times, got caught, and is now in the system and fighting for his own freedom. So he turncoats on an organization, the Panthers. And so reason why I critique it on this merit on this is because psychologically, what is happening to the folks who view that as a piece of film? I'm not talking about the historical accuracies or inaccuracies of it. I'm saying, how do the people interpret it? How do you interpret that somebody who's an enemy is given this kind of nuance where what we need in order to kind of activate people in a way that will be probably, in my opinion, more lasting and more profound, is we need characters who are the antagonists, which O'Neill is, to actually be somebody who the audience comes away with in disgust. And I don't think that disgust was there at the end of the film. You felt sorry for O'Neill. You didn't feel he was a disgusting, despicable person. And so I don't think his character is going to be a catalyst to get Black people to move towards African liberation.
The challenge.
That's my
Thank you for that. I think the challenge for me with that is in the everydayness of things in our lives. We live on a scale to a degree. And so I say we're all of it on some degree, and my challenge is that, but most people we know in our lives are not extremes. When I remember Dick Gregory saying, you kill where you live, and most violence is domestic. It's not people you don't know. And so when we want to, it's not, antagonists are not that clear cut. Like, your greatest antagonist, heck, when we're going to talk later for our audience about Malcolm and Marie. I mean, when that phrase is a thin line between love and hate, and some of the people you love the most can cut you the deepest. When you think about where you've gotten hurt the most, sometimes it's with your family. And so it's in that regard, I do feel like, well, when we say somebody is an antagonist, an antagonist is not necessarily somebody who's doing something so extreme. That's why, for me personally, as a Black person, when I consider the political field, I don't think of, I'm just going to talk about how, well, Republicans are doing this and they're supporting white supremacist agendas that hurt Black people. Well, isn't white supremacy also the white liberals who are Democrats who just want me to assimilate? To me, that's just as bad. The people who want me to assimilate and the people who flat out will call me the N-word, both of them are the same thing to me. They're the flip side of the same coin. Just because one is more harsh about it and another one might kill me with 1,000 cuts is the same thing.
different styles of white supremacy. I understand.
I get your point. There are gradations of it. I mean, would I rather have somebody who, well, I don't like playing the oppression Olympics, but would I rather have somebody who kills me off in 1,000, kills me and my people off in 1,000 years, or somebody who begins the extermination process immediately? Well, if those are the only two options, I'm picking the one who's going to exterminate me and my people in 1,000 years. All right. So there are gradations to this, but back to your point about the antagonist. Maybe that's not the right word. That's too filmy, right? I want him to be a villain. All right. I want the O'Neill character to be a villain, a very obvious villain. And so I kind of used, when we were talking yesterday or the day before, I kind of used some of the Marvel superheroes kind of language. I need him to be a Thanos,
or a Killmonger,
or not a Killmonger, because a Killmonger, you can empathize with Killmonger, even though the way people empathize with him was in a kind of weird, wonky way. That's a whole totally different conversation. We need him to be a villain, because when people are watching it, that is the best way to activate them.
So let me speak to that. He was the villain. I don't take that, because this man poisoned Fred when he was sitting there with his pregnant girlfriend. Like, what?
But now, did they say factually? Did that actually happen? But it's okay, even if
I'm talking to the movie. I don't know that happened in real life. In fact, everything I read from William O'Neill, he never admitted to that.
Okay.
But now peep this. It's the scene where they're mourning because their homeboy just got murked. And he shows up like, hey, let's go blow up City Hall, acting like he's really emotionally engaged, and he's wearing a wire. What's more villainous than that? You know what I mean? Like, he is the pinnacle of a snitch, coward, punk. The scene where the sister, they in the shootout with the police, he is looking for the exit. And it just the whole time, and in every scene they contrast him with Fred. It's like, Fred is like, I'm gonna die with the people. I'm here for the people. I'm gonna go to jail so that y'all can build this medical clinic. And then you put the coin, and O'Neill is only about himself. So I think they psychologically zero in and expose the psychology of the collaborator, of the traitor against the people. And I thought that's necessary. And it makes you, now a conflict is it could breed distrust in Black people, where we start looking at each other like, yo, who is the Judas among us? Right? So I worry about that. But,
so I guess to that point, Bruce, I would say there's a difference between an antagonist's self-preservation activities and him just being cold, calculating, ruthless, and a disgusting, despicable human. So O'Neill as a character falls more into the self-preservation. You know, we see the backstory, and we can see the humanist orientation to it. Hey, I'm just a dude, young cat in a bad position, and I'm trying to preserve my own self. So everything that I'm doing, it may seem bad if we didn't give that kind of historical background and context. But since we did, it humanizes him. And when it humanizes the villain, psychologically, how we interpret it is going to be radically different than if we go, at the end of the Marvel superheroes, we wanted Thanos to die. We wanted him to get beaten by the Avengers. And media is a tool.
But they humanize
It's a tool to transfer culture. It's truth, and obviously we can't transfer all the culture in a white supremacist society, but that's what stories are. That's what novels are. It's to transfer the culture and help the culture to do things that would lead to its own preservation.
So
just if a movie's not doing that, what is it doing?
Give me an example.
It's helping the enemy.
Give me a concrete example of something you would have removed from that character to make him more of this idealistic villain that you want, or this optimal villain that you want.
Yeah, I would have removed the fact that he was forced to partner with the FBI or risk going to jail. I would take that part completely out.
So there were times he could have walked away. He did a lot of stuff he didn't have to do. He did it of his own volition. You
know, but when he did at certain parts of the movie, it's like the white dude, I forgot what the FBI gentleman's name was. He was like, you know, you're still under our kind of, you don't have this kind of freedom that you think you do. It didn't bother y'all. Again, if there's this nuance right now when we're discussing it. So it's like,
it didn't bother y'all when he was sitting there eating steak with the FBI while his people was out there on the streets trying to. I didn't respect it at all. I found him vile and disgusting. And,
Do y'all remember when he said, though, people had different people to look up to? And to him, he looked up to that FBI agent.
Yeah.
Like,
He did?
yeah,
Yeah.
he said that in the movie,
Yeah,
like about
yeah.
having different people. But one thing that I didn't get from the movie, and I only knew that from a factual standpoint, how young they were. Like the fact that O'Neal was 17, the fact that when Fred Hampton died, he was only 21. That is very young. You know,
Yeah.
and when you look at them, when I looked at the movie, I really wasn't thinking of them as teenagers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was not thinking of them as here you are in your teens, or you might be 20, or I wasn't thinking of them as teenagers in that movie.
So
And I think that speaks to sometimes, though, trying to grow black children up too fast and putting us where, okay, let's execute you as an adult, even though your brain isn't fully developed yet. You still in your teenage years. So the FBI agents and all that manipulation that's going on with, and I'm not saying he isn't still the antagonist, but all of that going on and in a teenager's mind, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean his actions make perfect sense for O'Neal's life prior to his connection to the FBI. It makes sense. I mean, you can make those connections. Somebody actually, interestingly, talked to me just a couple of minutes ago about the fact that they weren't portrayed. I mean, they didn't have actors who were really young. Like both of those actors, they're probably in their 30s, I assume. But again, I think that works against us. All right, because then that would humanize O'Neal even more to the audience, him being a kid to the audience. It would be factually correct. But I don't really care about the historical accuracy when I'm in my critique about it psychologically. My critique is essentially on what does it do to the audience psychologically.
I think it depends on who the audience is. If it's people who there's a group of people, I don't care what you put in that movie, you are not going to activate them, right? Because they're that far away from it. These are the people who side with the police, and they might see O'Neal as the hero in the movie, right? But then for people who are for people who are activists and see that the states hold the system accountable and see that it's wrong, that they see that the real problem is J. Edgar Hoover, who states the thesis of his movement in the beginning of the movie that they want to prevent the rise of a black messiah. And they say our top priority right now, after we take out all these other ones, is Fred Hampton, right? So that is what's going on. And then O'Neal is a tool of that operation. So I don't want that to be lost.
And so I didn't walk away. I didn't walk away with the idea of Hoover being the mastermind. All right. So it's the same as when the Marvel superheroes movie came out with the first Avengers movie. Loki, right? Loki was the villain. He was the guy that you were disgusted with in the film. Like, this bad guy, kick his ass, right? Then at the end, you see Thanos is the one pulling the strings, but you don't have this kind of emotional, affective, visceral reaction to Thanos at this time because he's just the guy behind the scenes. So that's how the movie played out thematically for me.
That's a matter of perspective because I saw where they brought Hoover. I don't know that was even necessary. They brought Hoover there to tell Roy Wilkins to up his white supremacy. He's like, "Hey man, what about like that? Like that's."
But what I'm saying is that so your background is history. So because you know more of the historical accounts, you know just how dastardly J. Edgar Hoover is. Yeah. For the audiences, they may not know this. So they just look like a white dude in a position of power like they see on every kind of media that they watch, pulling strings, but the black guy is in the forefront doing dastardly things to a group. And so that has an effect.
I definitely understand you on that one. And I don't know that people can't connect that. I mean, they brought him in there to make him say he made straight out of the Ku Klux Klan playbook. We got to protect the virtue of your white daughter, or else if we don't kill Fred Hampton, black people are going to be raping our women. That is classic white surface racism. Not what's really behind it, but at the surface, right?
And also media manipulation. When the FBI generated that media that, when they went to the what they called in the movie The Crown, meeting with the crowns, and the leader was reading that propaganda, which we still have going on today, that and it made it seem as if the Black Panthers put that out, but they didn't.
Right.
And I'm saying, for us as a culture and a people, understanding the vast power of media manipulation, where I was listening to a talk just before we got on with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, and he was talking about how the vast misinformation that promotes the narrative that something is wrong with Black people. And people don't even check to see it's not even factually accurate. Like he was saying, Bruce, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to say this one fact thing that he brought up. He said, for example, during the coronavirus, people just kept saying, well, more black people are getting the coronavirus because they ain't taking it that seriously. And he said, well, actually, when studies were done, Black people were taking it twice as seriously. It was like actually other facts, but the narrative was just running around that Black people just didn't care that much. You know what I'm saying?
I want to add a caveat. If you notice, Roy Wilkins said to Hoover or the other FBI agent, he said, why don't we bring him in here to have him write it? I thought that was so powerful, right? To say, we don't really know how these people even talk. If we get a Black person to come in here and fix it up, it'll be that more divisive. And it failed ultimately because Fred was able to man, we didn't write that. But imagine at a certain point, they do have Black agents working with them. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, then we see that every time it's an election year and they trot out certain Black celebrities to say they in support of the Democratic candidate. So come on, y'all. All right, we got to talk about Malcolm and Marie before we get out of here.
All right, Malcolm and Marie.
So Mutor just watched it, so you fresh, Mutor, and Mutor felt a bit traumatized. So I want you to go first, Mutor, because you just watched it.
I mean, I felt like those first 30 minutes of that film, that was so exhausting. The toxicity of it was just ridiculous. I mean, at some point you got to pull the plug, like abort mission. Like, this is terrible. Y'all are destroying each other. Y'all are metastasizing in each other's bodies now.
If it's people who, forgive me, Mutor, if it's people who haven't seen or don't know what Malcolm and Marie is, gosh, I should have brought up the names of the actors, but
it's Zendaya and Denzel Washington's son.
Yes, but I
hate saying that like that.
I know.
What's his name? Like John Washington or something?
Yeah, John
Washington. There you go.
Okay.
But essentially, John Washington's character is a filmmaker who just celebrated the releasing of this film, and Zendaya's character, she's his girlfriend, and they come to their rented house that the studio put them up in, and they basically have one long argument the entire movie. That is exhausting, as Mutor said. But Mutor, you brought up too that the movie was actually written by a white man.
Yeah, the guy's name
The
guy's last name is Levinson. I saw a picture of him. This is 30-something-year-old white dude. So I know I have a problem, and once you know that it's made by a white guy and it's rated by a white guy and directed by a white guy, if you watch the film with that kind of lens, you can see that there's problems, that he doesn't know enough about Black culture to make his portrayal of these characters as real as it could be. Because obviously there's Black characters doing the film, and so they know how they're supposed to act because they're already Black. But like the first part with John Washington jumping on the windowsill, like Black folks don't jump on windowsills to dance. That's not what. I mean, and then like Zendaya giving John, some mac and cheese from a box.
Oh yeah, she did. Hey, but she was.
It did make me want some mac and cheese though.
For real, that's so toxic.
Not the stove.
What is this? What is this nonsense?
She was like, really, like, I made you this mac and cheese, and you still talking about me. I was like, man, this not even real mac and cheese. Like, you got to play a role. Like,
it was just really interesting. And then like And then like just the idea of a white person writing about what black people think about white folks when white folks aren't around. Like I thought that was some kind of like Inception kind of stuff. Like what? Like hold on, back up here, you know. And he was talking all this like, oh, this white lady who's writing this dossier about you is a SJ, so it's essentially an SJW, and it was just all kinds of stuff. And it's like, whoa, but you're a white guy talking as if you're a black guy about a white person being an ultra liberal. It's very weird and off-putting. And we have a history of black shows being totally written by white folks. So Good Times, written by white folks. The Jeffersons, written by white folks. So and black people see this and think, oh, this may be true to life. It's like, no, this is white folks trying to write what they think black people are. And it's kind of weird and off-putting to me for a lot. Now their acting, Zendaya's acting and John Washington's acting, superb. Very quality actors. The directing of it, the cinematography of it, beautiful. But I just thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah. I wonder how far they were able to go off script and improvise, and how much that accounted for the black feel that the movie did have in certain aspects.
Yeah.
I wonder about that. But ultimately, my experience with the movie was I was excited to watch it because I heard everybody talking about it. And then I was like, okay, when does the plot kick in? And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is just an argument movie. And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, oh, no, what have I gotten into? And then like it started pulling my energy down. Like I was excited and it was like pulling down. And then I was like, okay, maybe they could just go to sleep. Like, and then this will be over. Maybe they'll just have sex. Like I just wanted it to end. I was like, oh God, thank you, it's over. Like it was excruciating.
I mean that's even like the music selection. Like some of the songs were like these offbeat songs. Like I know a lot of James Brown's catalog because I got black parents, and the song that he chose was like, really? That James Brown, and then at some point he chose "Get Rid of Him" by Dionne Warwick. Nobody played "Get Rid of Him" by Dionne Warwick. I've heard it. That's not what my parents played when I was a kid. Like it's just weird having a white person do this.
In that scene, would have played "Irreplaceable" by Beyonce.
I don't like that they played the "Leave Love Jones" is Love Jones. Why they try to play that? It's like, come on, you don't have to play that one too. But I want to say, gosh, guys, our time, we said we were just doing this for 30 minutes and our time is going away. I want to say something that was funny to me. My sister told me there was a meme going around. So there was a part in the movie where John Washington's character, okay, so Zendaya's character thinks that this film was about her, and she's upset because she wanted to be cast in that role and he didn't cast her. And she thought that movie was about her life. So she just kind of ripped him to shreds. And then as the movie was going on, he started talking about how actually that movie was about various women that he had dated in his life. So only a part of it was about her, which is very like, oh gosh. And he started going into those various relationships.
Whose man is this? What black dude says that to his girl? Like,
there was a meme where that was going around, that DMX song where he's like, Felicia, Keisha, like they just start but the thing that I would say that is tough when we were talking about a thin line between love and hate is when we're in relationships and we don't have boundaries of saying, I'm not gonna go there. Like with another person, like to stop. However, once we allow ourselves to build momentum in a certain energy level, when you mad and nobody's willing to say, let me take a minute or some space or whatever so that I can get together and come and holler at you later so that I won't go there. That's what can happen. You just start getting worse and worse and you never get to the bottom of it because it's like you just keep going and going and going until you just fall asleep, basically.
No. And then like the spoiler alert, like there's no like real resolution.
Nope.
To the movie.
Nope.
It's like
I think that's the point of these endless arguments we have. There's never really a resolution, and we think there's gonna be. I'm gonna say that as a woman. Sometimes when I think no, we need to talk about this and we need to talk about this right now because this is how I feel. And you realize actually it doesn't really get resolved. Not the way that I'm thinking. I'm thinking if we just exhaust all possibilities and talk about this subject, we'll come to a resolution. And it does, that's a false premise that we actually don't get one. Sometimes the guys we just give up.
Yeah.
But then I was saying to you before we went live is that like again with the white portrayal of black folks. So at some juncture in time, like I know a lot about black women, not enough. I will never know enough. But from the little bit I do know, is that in this exchange, the black woman would have done one of two things at some point. They would have left, right? Left the scene, or they would have tried to attack you because he was going in on some of these
Someone's
fights.
gonna get thrown or somebody
physical, domestic, intimate partner violence would have occurred. Like either that or I'm just gonna leave. Not I'm gonna go to a different part of the house and like do something so we can like fight again.
But that house was in the middle of nowhere. I ain't saying she couldn't have left. Yeah. But that house is in the middle of nowhere. But we passed our time. Go ahead, Bruce.
If you ever find yourself in that situation in an endless argument, I always advise people, and this is hard because you got to discipline yourself to do it. Go to I statements. Projections, when you say you did this because you think this, and I know you feel this way, normally that's what you're feeling or how you would feel in that situation. You're projecting it onto the other person. Just say how you feel only and let your partner say how they feel. If you do that, you might be able to navigate your way out of the argument. If not, projections, where you force somebody to defend something that they may or may not feel, now they have the option is to attack or deflect, and you won't get anywhere. And they go deflect and respond back to you and talk about what they think you feel. Like you did this because your mama don't love you and you speak. How do you know that? Like, what are you talking
about my mama? Yeah.
Exactly. And another thing is like also when you're trying to talk to somebody, you might want to get your positive stuff out first before you say your negative stuff because we were what you mean with the criticism sandwich? Nothing else she said, and I've done that before.
Criticism sandwich. That's what you're saying, bro.
Huh?
Like, hey, you did this really well, but then there's this, and then you end with some other good stuff. It's called the criticism sandwich in training.
Well,
that's hilarious, though.
Don't do that though, but just don't. The negatives are going to stick out better than the positives when you talk to somebody. So if you want to give them something positive, you might want to leave the negatives out. I don't know. It didn't seem like it worked for either of them.
But I think you have to you got to get in a better space in order to actually engage in a conversation with people, period. So if I'm really pissed, I don't need to talk right then. Like it's not going to help me or that other person to try to have a conversation because I'm not in a conversational space. I'm in a pissed off space. So me, that's the thing.
He goaded her and kept asking her, like, incessantly, what's wrong?
Yeah,
what's wrong?
She did say let it go. She did say she didn't think we needed to talk about this.
So on one last thing about again white portrayals of black life, like her character is a 20-something-year-old former cocaine addict. I don't know. I mean, even the drug choice is kind of weird. Do we hear about like black women on cocaine?
No, she was a pill head. I think she had a pill problem, bro. And interestingly, that's a growing issue.
But they said crack. Yeah, they did say that.
It was crack?
No, they said cocaine.
Oh, cocaine, yeah.
Cocaine is you gotta have some money to get cocaine. But her backstory was like, oh, she lived in the real ghetto and he was just a pretender. So it's like, well, how you have the bread for cocaine? So it was just weird. It was weird to me. I don't know. I'm more too into it, but it's just weird.
People do coke, and man, their attacks on each other were just so debilitating, man. I destroyed somebody you care about.
If anything, it made me to say, see, Ebony, that's why you don't need to be in long, drawn out arguments. Because that's for real. It's like, if I watch it myself, it's like, Ebony, just stop. Like, don't do it. So
maybe we can all record our arguments and then watch them later. I wonder what that would do.
Stop. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
If you recorded the argument and then watched it a week later when you wasn't in that argument space, You would be like,
No.
oh my God, you would be so embarrassed. Like, why would you say that, you idiot? Like, what's wrong?
See,
with you?
I just learned when I get to that kind of level where I want to like rage on somebody,
Get
I just bounce. I
Yeah.
bounce.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
the
until
best
I
way
can
to
come
do it.
back level headed and talk like a normal person. Like,
Yeah.
ain't nothing good come from that.
Except when
But
gas
it's-
prices is too high, then you can't go nowhere, man.
Ooh, damn.
Or COVID or winter storms and
Exactly.
stuff that we got going on here in the Midwest. But that was our take on a couple of Black films. We wanted to share some insight and just have a little bit of fun. We are excited to be back for season 2 for GDL 2021. We're gonna have our first debate. I know there was a personal situation, and so we needed to reschedule for this week. So that's why we had the change from last week. But we will have our debate this Thursday. Bruce is moderating. Bruce, you want to chat it up for a second?
Yeah, we got a good debate coming up Thursday. Mr. Thulani Rage Deskins versus Amiri Brown. And these two brothers are going to be debating, is Black collective fear the primary issue that's preventing Black progress? And I think that's going to be a really interesting debate. Tune in Tuesday night at Thursday night at 9.
This Thursday.
What is that? February 18th.
Yeah, and I want to say, Bruce, this debate came about after the insurrection at the Capitol, and there was some conversation in our Facebook group about whether or not Black people would have even tried to overthrow the government and do that. And is it about our fear and the reason why we wouldn't do that right now? So I think it'll be a good exchange. It'll be a good exchange. So we hope y'all can watch the same way you're watching this now on our YouTube channel, The Great Debate League Inc. But we already have it as an event on our page this Thursday, February 18th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope you'll join us, and we look forward to you being a part of the league and reaching out to us if you want to debate as well. Anything else, guys? Y'all good?
I'm good.
All right, we appreciate you.
Ebony.
We appreciate y'all for hanging with us. We'll see y'all Thursday. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.